I'm a staff reporter for a small daily newspaper in a regional medical shopping hub that also has a university campus, Division II campus. But I mostly am a staff writer. I worked at 2 other daily papers ahead of coming back to the Kearney area, which is where I'm from. I've been there for 31 years, but my specialty is agriculture and natural resources. But of course, you do a little bit of everything at a small paper. I take my own photos, love to do the feature pages for a section on the weekend. We have 4 sections on the weekend. That's feature, story, and photo package. I write a weekly column called Potter's Wheel that I've done since college. And agriculture in Nebraska is by far our #1 industry, and even in a city the size of Kearney, about 30,000, university town, a lot of people kind of forget that, so I try to help remind them. My first job was in the Panhandle of Nebraska at another weekly or daily newspaper, an area I wasn't familiar with, didn't know anyone, and this ranch woman came in. She had come to Alliance to do a story as a stringer for the North Platte Telegraph related to cattle branding, because one of the brand commission offices were there. And she had made a habit of, whenever she was in a town, she'd stop and troll for presswoman members. So she came to my desk and she basically said, "Hi, I'm Mary Ann Beal, and you need to belong to Nebraska Presswomen." And I had heard of the organization from my a teacher at Kearney State College, and but anyway, I was just terribly flattered that somebody thought this. I was either 21 or 22 at the time. Rookie journalists belonged in any kind of professional organization, and I remember the first meeting was in Hastings. It was a long ways away from Alliance, but it was not too far from where I grew up, and went to the meeting, and I entered the contest, because you were supposed to enter the contest. I think I entered 3 things and I got a 3rd place, and I just thought I had arrived. And I don't know that I've ever missed a state meeting, and but you join the state affiliate and you start hearing about the national conventions. And this same woman that recruited me, who passed away 10 years ago, she had been to a few conventions. Today they reference the Philadelphia convention 30-some years ago. She had been at that convention and wrote the funniest column, because she lived out on a ranch 40 miles from town, and the big city, and trying to find a cup of coffee even at that time that wasn't some sort of frou-frou coffee and that. But my first convention actually was 30 years ago, the 50th anniversary convention in 1987, and in Williamsburg. And once you've been to a national convention, you're kind of hooked. I had been a state president for 2 terms, and treasurer and contest director and all those things. And actually it was a former national president from Kansas, Vivian Sadowski, who had asked me to be an advisor, and several of the other past presidents had asked me to lead the contest review, or do something that was not a board position but was a task or an advisory role. And she had kind of encouraged me. And then also Marge Carpenter from Texas, another past president, who we butted heads a little bit on something when I was state president about a dues increase or something, and she still recalls that, but she liked me anyway. I ran for second vice president with the intention that if they wanted me, I would move up the ranks. One thing that was different in my term is, terms are 2 years. At the end of the first year, the first vice president ahead of me from Iowa passed away. So everybody, jumped up a rank, and we got a new secretary. So I was actually first vice president for 3 years, but I'd only been on the board for 4, so I didn't really feel ready to be president. And Cynthia Price from Virginia had not been on the board, but had a lot of leadership experience. So they came to me when it was going to be election the next year. And anyway, she indicated that she was thinking of running. Would that offend me? And I said, I would love it. I feel like I need 2 more years to be prepared. So that was unusual for my trip up the ladder. And during my actual 2 years, 2011, 2013, the highlight was the first convention over which I presided. 2012 was our 75th. Cynthia ahead of me was the leader of the changing to the digital contest, which was a very big job and was quite outside my skill set. So there was some fate intervention that led to that. Similarly, Terry Arisman, who was behind me as president, was the year that we needed to seek a new headquarters staff. And that also was way out of my area of expertise. But Terry had some human resources overseeing a staff. She had the talents there. So I was joking with Cynthia this morning, too, that I kind of had the easy 2 years in between 2 very challenging events for the organization. I think one thing that was a better use of my talents, we started, several of us, Cynthia started a blog, and then that started the tradition. Her blog always has been, organizational skills, professional skills, and that kind of thing. And I said, well, I'm glad to do a blog, but it'd have to be more like the personal column that I do. So I managed to do that. I might have missed a few, but basically updated it every week, where I did a blog, and I did it then as past president. So for 4 years I did that, and tried to introduce a photo in everyone or almost everyone to add some interest. I've gone and been able to visit parts of our country that I wouldn't have done on my own by doing either the day tours, or I've done a lot of the pre and post tours over the years. But just the networking, I look at some of these people and it's like a family reunion, you see them every year. And a lot of it's the reinforcement, getting reinforcement from people whose opinion you value highly. Because sometimes at the office, you kind of get the sense that maybe the boss is saying something nice because he feels he has to. But I know these people. They're not going to give you a compliment unless they think it's deserved. But I think that's the main thing. And I have said many times, with the stress of the job, as much as I like writing and photography, I don't know if I could have done it without, both on the state level and the national, having kindred spirits who you don't have to start from zero and explain what you're going through and why you need to talk to somebody about it. I love print journalism, and I'm very thankful that I got into it almost 40 years ago when that was still it. So change is hard for me. So I kind of rely on the others who understand the newer ways to communicate better than I do. But I would love to see the younger generation get out from behind the screen a little bit, even once, and have some of this face-to-face interaction, because I think that's still important. And I see just little glimmers of it in the younger people in my office that, you can get them to go out and have a talking lunch or something like that. So that, I don't know if that's a vision or a dream, but if we could see the numbers that we used to see, the numbers of when we had several hundred people at every convention instead of just over 100, and we talked about the contest entries too, where we used to have 2,500 to 3,000 entries at the affiliate level to be competing. That would be very nice too. But I think the vision is, get the website improvements made, and just be very conscious that we have to communicate differently with the next generation than maybe a lot of us would be most comfortable with. I will say that when I joined, the thought that I would ever be considered either at my affiliate level and certainly at the national level, worthy of having a leadership role. And certainly every one of the ones that you'll talk to will tell you, it's not a dictatorship in any way, sense, or form. You surround. The best thing you can do for yourself is surround yourself by excellent people, and so probably your first best step is being persuasive enough to get the people whose advice you value and who have the talents and skills that you do not have, get them convinced to be part of your team. But so I think that's the main thing. I'm not so shy as I'm an introvert, and sometimes have to have myself convinced to go out and do things and have people tell me I can do something I didn't think I could do. And that's important in any part of your life, that you have people that remind you that you don't have to do the same thing. What's that old saying? If you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always got. And I struggle with that, and this group has helped me come out of that at least a little bit.